Alvin in North Carolina wants to talk to us about Pew Research. So how you doing, Alvin?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Pew Research, takes studies of various people, and Pew Research and a number of other organizations have determined that Christians live 7 years longer than atheists. And I just wanted your opinion.
My opinion on what? Darrel, do you have an opinion?
Well, first of all, you need to cite your sources here a little bit. There's a hell of a lot of research out there, and there's a lot of contradictory research. So the first thing I'd ask is what's the source? So make sure you give us whatever the primary source is. I don't mean a newspaper report. I mean the Pew research.
Yeah. So the Pew Research is what he was referencing, but go ahead.
Right. No, he might have been referencing an article he read in the newspaper that cited Pew, and that's what we get a lot. I want to know the actual Pew Research. But the second thing is, there's much more sophistication in this research than you might think. And Pew's been in the middle of it, and they've done some good work on it. If you think of belief and non-belief as a spectrum, with believers way over here, on my right, and they've got a deep God belief, and they've got a church, and they attend that church every Sunday. And then you come up clear over here on the other side, and you've got non-believers who have groups they attend. We have one right here in Kansas City called Oasis. And you look at their respective quality of life and longevity of life, they're about equal.
Yeah.
I think the variable is community. Yeah. Whether it's a believer community or non-believer community, communities make people healthier. Communities make people mentally healthier. Communities give you support economically, financially, emotionally. So I think, and Alvin, that's what Pew found.
I think what Alvin pointed out is technically incorrect, because Alvin is saying that Pew Research says Christians live 7 years longer. But I think the research, if I recall correctly, was that religious people live 7 years longer on average. And Alvin's just taking that to mean Christian when it applies to people associated with pretty much any religion.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's reasonable. We know whether it's religious or not, that it's community that's the difference. Yeah. Pew didn't do a very good job back in the early 2000s of separating those two out. They're doing better now. The worst thing is that Pew continues to not do a very good job of identifying specifically atheists. So what he just said may or may not be true. I haven't seen any data that says 7 years, period. I just haven't.
Yeah. If you got a link for us, Alvin, that'd be helpful, because my thing is that whenever Pew comes out with a study, when they're citing like religious people are happier or healthier, that they're not just talking about Christianity. They're talking about anyone who participates in any of those community type religions. And it's people who are actively religious. But if you've got a link, you can share it.
Well, yeah, I've got links. I can give them to you. They're on my website. Be glad to give you that if you want it. But I think you're right. They are referring to people that go to church, who is primarily Christians, and community does have a lot to do with it. But the same study found that people who go to church are healthier and happier and more generous, even outside of tithing.
That wasn't what they found. Yeah. There was a little bit more there. And the other piece you're missing there is it's mental health, physical health, longevity. All these things are measured in community. Now, did Pew go out and find atheist communities to compare to Christian or Muslim or Buddhist communities? No, they did not. So we really don't even have that data.
And there's a problem, because a lot of this is self-reported about whether or not you are healthier or happier. And what we know is that the community aspect, which applies to churches as well as secular communities, provide a sort of social network that helps to keep people healthier and happier. And also, it's already a biased result, because the type of people who have the time and finances and ability to actively participate in a religious organization already are selected for those people who are more likely to have healthcare and be healthier and have jobs and things like that. It's not like there's plenty of Christian homeless people who are not particularly healthy or happy. There's plenty of religious people who don't have the means to participate in those studies and things like that. There's absolutely nothing about any of these studies that suggests that there's something true about the religion, even if it provides a benefit. Because
Right.
like I've pointed out before, I can prove to you that prayer works and is a good thing in this particular situation. And the situation I've used before is if you are in a mine shaft cave-in and you pray, you will increase the chances that you will be rescued. Not because there's a God listening, but because prayer will calm you and you'll use less oxygen, which extends the amount of time that you can be in there. And the more time that you're in there, that increases the likelihood that you're actually going to be rescued. So it's one thing to say, oh, there's a study that shows this. That's neat. And there could be many different reasons for it. None of that goes to prove whether or not Christianity is true, which is the only thing I care about with regard to Christianity. Is it true? Not whether or not it's useful or beneficial or whether people are happier with believing. That's hardly surprising, because if you feel like you don't have to worry about life and that you're going to go on to an afterlife where you're going to visit your relatives and sit there and be happy forever, that can ease a lot of life's discomforts. But if it turns out it's not true, then you've basically had false hope.
There's a well-being curve.
There's proof.
There's a well-being curve, Alvin, that the research you cite is not, you haven't cited. And that the well-being curve is the people in the middle, according to Pew and several other organizations, the people in the middle are the ones that have the lowest mental health, the lowest physical health. There's a lot of negatives to be in the middle. Now, if you want to take that to its extreme, it says the most secure, the most healthy people are the rabid Christians or the rabid atheists, because they're on that are also in a community. If you add those two pieces, the people on the fringes, on the outer right and left, they're doing well. It's the middle people that don't do as well.
But Alvin wanted to add something about proof. So what was that, Alvin?
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, last week you said that the universe is not fine-tuned. Well, every scientist on the planet would disagree with you. It's like 10 to the 10 to the 123. I guess 10 to the 10 to the 180.
So Alvin, you can't say that every scientist on the planet would disagree with me when I'm referencing what scientists actually say. I mean, you just sound ridiculous. So you called in last week, right? And today you're referencing Pew Research. And so we gave you an answer on that. And when the answer didn't go as expected, you decided to complain that last week I said something, and then you pull some statistic out of your ass. Well, I've sat on stage with some of the world's most eminent scientists, and they don't, in fact, disagree with me on this. So how do you feel about that?
So you're saying there is no fine tuning?
No, that's not what I said. Wow. It's like, here's the thing, Alvin, you just said that every scientist on the planet disagrees with me on whether or not there's fine tuning. And it seems that you still don't know what my position is on fine tuning. But when I ask you how you feel about being demonstrably, clearly, obviously wrong, when you assert that every scientist disagrees with me, and ask you how you feel about that, you just deflect. Do you know how to have an actual conversation here, Alvin?
You make a point. It may not be every scientist.
Oh, you exaggerated to make a point. Hey, do you know how many scientists or what percentage of scientists is? Because the overwhelming majority of elite scientists in the National Academy of Sciences don't believe in a personal God. Did you know that?
Yeah, but they do believe in fine tuning.
No. Not the way you're using the term. I'm fine with the notion that there appears to be fine tuning, but there's not fine tuning. Fine tuning needs to be demonstrated. You'd have to show that the universe could have been a different way and that something acted specifically with the intent of making it this way. That's what fine tuning means.
Then how do you explain the Mandelbrot set?
Okay, Alvin, we're done, because here's the thing. Every time I address one of your little issues, you can't come in with, what about this? What about this? And every time it just shows that you don't know what you're talking about. So when you come in and you're like, oh, what about all these scientists who disagree with you? Well, that's not the case. Well, what about the Mandelbrot set? Well, the Mandelbrot set is a mathematical construct that produces fractals. It has absolutely nothing the fuck to do with anything that we've discussed here. And the fact that you would raise it just shows me that you're completely out of ideas. But thank you, Alvin.
Well, I would say to Alvin that also that I see a pattern here, Matt, and that is it looks like every piece is coming from Christian apologetics of some kind. So, Alvin, what I would encourage you to do is go take an actual course on cosmology, take an actual course on mathematics that deals with Mandelbrot sets and chaos theory. And when you've done that and you come back here, maybe you can have an intelligent conversation. But what you're just doing is throwing ideas out that you actually don't seem to understand at any level.